Rahul, let's turn to the management of how the fuel excise duties are handled. You've seen a situation where it became a huge issue, but it wasn't election year, of the kind of continuous rise in the base price as well as the higher imposts. Now, we get the logic of the pandemic dip and fuel excise being used to fill coffers. In November, we have seen a reversal to that, a cut. However, we have also parallelly seen that oil marketing companies are not raising prices since then. Crude oil has meanwhile continued to move northwards. This year is a year of 7 elections, of which 5 are happening in March. What does this tell you about the political economy management? Why not approach it with the same sort of fair, even-handed approach that we see in different sectors? Why is oil special and also not in the GST, Rahul?
Yeah, so I think as far as the oil taxes are concerned, even if they are not, oil prices are concerned, even if they are not raised in the interim, we do think it's a delayed effect. It's not a denied effect, right? So prices will eventually go up. By our estimates, it could go up by anywhere between 5 to 6 rupees, both for petrol and for diesel. By the time we come to March and the election results are out. And so it will have some inflationary impact. I think the larger challenge, though, is that, over the last few years, oil taxes, ever since the 2014 end, when they had come down very sharply for the first time and the government had fiscalized quite of the gains, to basically reduce subsidies and then to actually increase their revenues. The oil dependency is something that is, increased quite a bit as far as our fiscal financing is concerned. And this is both at the central and at the state level, right? So it's not just the central government which is using oil as a way to finance its revenues, but also the states also are incrementally relying on it. Now, the one way to kind of come out of this particular trap, if we can call it that, is to basically look at other means of taxation. And here the GST is going to play a pretty big role in our opinion, that, as we come to a point where the assured revenues, the compensation for states is going to expire, there could be a discussion between the states and the center to basically use the GST as a way to kind of compensate for some of these losses, and which will also then be driven by a much larger base of goods and services, which can provide some alternate to the entire oil economy, which has a lot of dimensions, not just economically but also from a political standpoint.
Indranil, on taxation, we saw in 2015 the government virtually junk the direct taxes code. There was a report which has never been made public subsequently. We have seen tinkering, major ones like the corporate tax rate cuts, some here and there things on the personal income tax front. GST, as we know, the shape outside of the budget. Given all of this, should we expect anything in this budget as far as taxation is concerned?
Well, I think to a certain extent, as I think I have been pointing out, consumption needs to be sort of looked at. The private consumption demand is still lagging that of the pre-pandemic. Wage growth in the rural segment has been low. People who might have lost their jobs during the peak of the pandemic, some of them, or a significant chunk of them, may have got their jobs back, but at a relatively lower wages. So I think in terms of my own understanding, I think the critical piece that is lacking in the economy is personal consumption, the way it needs to be looked at. And to that extent, the need from the budget perspective is to provide some confidence to the consumers in the economy. That possibly can only be done through the taxes. So one way out, even if it may be relatively unpalatable to people like you and me, is a larger cess on individuals like you and me and in the higher income bracket, to be distributed through lower taxes or maybe merging of the lowest two tax slabs. And that probably can actually provide some sort of stabilization and impetus to consumer sentiment and allow consumers to consume in an atmosphere where we have already started seeing deposit rates and lending rates of the banking sector relatively turning, or at least having sort of flowed.
I'm going to thank all my economists here on the panel tonight, and you, the viewer. Thank you very much for tuning in.